I am calling the Neary Building Committee Finance Subcommittee to order on September 11th at 1:03 p.m. Everyone is here. Okay, so I think this one's going to be another quick one. So let's start off with reviewing the minutes from August 9th, which was a meeting that we had prior to the big meeting where we voted on going forth with C4. Anyone have
Kathy, why don't we just wait to do that in the other meeting?
review our minutes?
Well, the other committee can approve the minutes for this committee. It's one document, right? I mean, if we have edits, we can edit it now, but we're gonna have to vote on the whole document as part of the other meeting anyway.
But I think we still have to, as a subcommittee, approve our minutes and not do it with the whole committee. I think our committee's got to do its own vote.
I don't know, for some reason I thought a full committee can just override the sub one, but we can vote.
I think they're fine. The only thing I see is she's calling the capital committee a subcommittee, which it's not. You know, it's a full-blown committee. It's CIPC. So it should be Capital Investment Planning Committee, CIPC, on page 4. There's 2 places in that second paragraph. Other than that, I thought she did her usual outstanding job.
They got the Mark Davis spelling right fixed.
What's that?
I think it looks like it's already in the one you had. They changed the spelling of Mark on there, so I think we're good.
How can you misspell Mark?
Oh, trust me, you can.
MIRC.
I know it says Davis. Oh, never mind. It's fine.
All right, so it's fine.
It's just in the version you sent, there's track changes, right? So it has the edit there. So it's making sure that they accept that edit.
All right, I will make sure that Mark's name is spelled correctly. Okay, so other than changing capital to CIPC 2 places and making sure Mark's name is spelled correctly, anybody else have anything else from August the 9th?
Nope.
All right, you will make a motion, Jason?
I will make a motion, Andrew, to approve the
All
minute.
right. You know how many times I do that. Sorry. Okay, I've got Jason. He just called me. That's so I'm looking down my phone. Sorry. Go ahead.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Roll call vote. Andrew.
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
Kathy is aye, so 3-0. Okay, there you go. We got 2 invoices. We've got one from the normal 2 invoices, one from Skanska, one from Arrow Street. We are going to hold the Skanska invoice, Jim, which I will explain later to you. There was a question on whether Marian's time should be billed. I was not part of that conversation. I got a phone call from Mr. Malinowski telling me that, so I haven't had a chance to talk to Dale yet, so need to talk to Dale and see what's going on as far as Marianne's time. So we're going to hold that one. It's a small one anyway, Jim, so I don't think it's going to break your bank if we hold that. Okay.
That's no problem.
All right, I think you'll still get your paycheck.
Yep.
Okay, so let's just take a look at Arrow Street, which is this normal pro rata fixed fee amount. Anybody having questions on that one?
Nope. I still don't understand why we keep approving invoices for them as opposed to just approving the cost, but that's fine.
Well, you know, sometimes you just do things without necessarily thinking through them. I think this is a process we were told to go through. Maybe MSBA says do it. I don't know. Anyway, so you want to make a motion to approve the Arrow Street invoice from August?
Sure. I make a motion that we approve the Arrow Street Inc. invoice number 729-715 in the amount of $19,680.
Second.
Roll call vote. Andrew.
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
Cook is aye. Hey, Becky, on their end for this invoice, they say that the 8/7 invoice is still outstanding, and we approved that one on August 9th. So I don't know if there's just a crossover here or crossing of things getting paid, whatever, but it does say it's still not paid. And this was dated.
Going this week.
Okay, all right, so you've got it, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so that takes care of invoices other than the Skanska one, which we'll deal with next meeting. Okay, I'll come back to next meeting date. So, you know, we're meeting as a full committee on Monday. I haven't looked at the agenda to see what's all on it, if there is an agenda. We're gonna meet Friday to, I guess, do something quickly, Jim, with the PSR.
Correct. Just some initial comments that we just have to review with the group.
Okay, so I assume that's quick.
Yep.
Nothing
Should be.
changing. All right, so the big news since we met last is that the MSBA has voted to increase their reimbursement rates about $36, I believe. Yeah. So they're going to go from $550, which is what we used in our projections, a square foot, to $586 a square foot for just the building cost, and then they're going to increase the site cost from $55 to $59. That site cost is basically 10% of the building cost. So that's good news for us. If everything we were submitting was totally reimbursable, which it's not, but if it were, $36 times 100,000 square feet is $3.6 million. So it's probably worth between 2 and 3, I would say, Jim, between $2 and $3 million to us once we actually figure out how to apply it.
So we're still running the numbers. Yeah, it goes from about 83 to 81 million for town share. Sorry.
84. It's 84. 84.
Yeah, 84 to 81.8. So
Right, so
in the ballpark, yeah.
2.2. Okay. So that's anytime we can come down $1 million, I think that's a good thing. Every million
Absolutely.
helps quite a bit. I'm not sure what you guys are hearing. So this is starting to percolate around town, and I think it probably depends. It's kind of a tale of two cities, maybe. So those in Paris don't like it, and those in London think it's great. So we will see how it all turns out. So I think our job, one of our jobs between now and then, is to do everything we can to push on this cost as much as we can, encourage anything we can think of to be done. So I was hoping today we could start kind of a list of things that we think could still reduce the cost, hopefully don't increase the cost, and then start seeing what we can do to help achieve that. Anybody disagree with what I just said?
No, I think the uphill battle, and I don't know whether it's for this committee or it's for the full Neary committee, is, what are the alternatives, right? We looked at some of them as part of this project, but people keep suggesting other ones that unless we kind of get answers to all of those, we're going to, kind of be into the situation of, well, let's shoot this down and research that option kind of thing.
So what do you think the alternatives are that are being floated around, Andrew, as far as people not involved?
I think do nothing, right, is certainly one I've heard. I've heard, well, if we can put the kids in the other two schools for 2 years, why can't we just close Neary and make that formal? So I think that's one that we need to understand the ramifications, right? But it's probably more from an educational standpoint than it would be from a financial one. But so it might be more of the over towards to Greg in the school district and the full committee to answer those ones. But I think there's certainly people that have opinions, that those weren't options that we had in our list of 12. So we didn't research them. Even people that are, what if we just do a real base repair of Neary and not increase the square footage, but just repair it, kind of thing. But basically not improve the educational abilities, right? But that, well, again, wasn't one of the options we really looked at.
Well, that was one of the 12, not one of the 3, but it was one of the 12. That was B1. But, remember too, and I do think this is in our bailiwick to do this because it's about cost. I mean, the whole decision by the towns could be based on cost. If this were a $20 million project, I think it would sail right through. So it's a cost that is going to, I think, determine the article's fate in April. So, I've heard what you've heard too, Andrew, as far as the second choice. I haven't heard a whole lot about just do nothing, because I think most people, especially those that are in the school, realize that that's really not possible.
I think it's not a do nothing. I think people saw the base repair as we added a lot of square footage on that, right? It was, there were the two grade option, right, was of keep renovation was adding a lot of square footage.
Well, B4, yes, but not necessarily B1. So once we got down to the 3, we were either going to really renovate and expand for B4, or we're gonna do a whole new school. So those that are saying, well, look, if you can move the kids almost comfortably into Woodward and Finn, which is what we're planning to do with the addition of the modulars, then why can't we just add on a little bit to each of those schools and be done with it? So I think that's the one that's going to have to be answered more than the do nothing or the base repair of Neary, just because Neary is so old. I think we can answer that one pretty easily. I think the other one's a little bit more difficult to answer because you could do that. Finn's got room to add. We've shown that we could add to Woodward. They worked on that. MSBA might not participate in that one because of the newness of the school, but we could do it. So I think that that's the one we've got to have a pretty good explanation for why we don't think that is the better path.
Yeah, and then I think there's still the question about the site conditions and whether or not that site is still okay.
Who is the one that is talking so much about the site? Is that Carl?
Carl, yeah.
Okay.
I emailed Jason on Carl's comments, and Jason suggested that I contact him and have a conversation. I said, sure, I can do that. I don't know him. But I think his email kind of pointed out some stuff that we've already looked at. So I can walk him through what we've done and where we are if that would help.
So, Mark, I think that's a great idea. Carl's a good guy. He's been in, I know him well because he's been in Rotary Club for so long, but he's a good guy. And I do think a lot of what he's asking has been looked at. He just needs to understand that. So I think that will help. He's a reasonable guy. So he's the one, Mark, that basically is responsible for the $4 million cleanup of the Breakneck Hill Road that we're undergoing right now. It was him that he was on Conservation Commission for a while. So he was the one that was just really insisting we get that done once we realized how bad it was. So
Right.
that's him. So he understands things. He was on Concom. So I think you sitting down with him and really letting him know what all we've done, especially you, as far as trying to make sure that space is safe as far as the landfill goes, would probably be really helpful to him. And I think he'd appreciate it too.
So yeah, quietly in the background, I'll do that. One of the things, if the issue is making the transfer permanent to Woodward and Finn, then we better have a firm number as to what the demolition costs are for Neary. Because that number, we're not just gonna leave an empty building there that serves no purpose to the town. So we better have some costs associated with that. So it's not quite as simple as what they're talking about.
Well, I don't think you should assume that building is coming down if we were to vacate it as a school, because you still got the community center that is still in people's minds. The community center was really intended for Finn as far as the work that was done. That's the building they looked at, not Neary. But I don't know if that building comes down or not. So we definitely would have to deal with that building. You're right, one way or the other, if in that explanation as to why we don't think that's the way to go.
The other thing I have pointed out to Jason is that on this specific issue, whether we just do a simple rehab, and Jim, we may need a number on what the energy code issue entails and how much it costs, because I've felt that we're missing a major bullet on the cost to just do some simple repairs to the building. That not only would we be subject to the handicap code, we're going to be subject to the energy code, which is a replacement, as I understand it, almost of the entire facade of that building. And that's going to have to happen. So I think there's a wrong feeling in the town that, oh, why don't we just put Band-Aids on this and keep plodding along? We can't. All these other things begin to trigger in.
Yep.
Yeah, and that for the stretch energy code, that's all included within that base repair estimate that we did during the PDP.
Yeah, but the B1 added 22,000 square feet for a 305.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. That's
Really?
what I'm trying to say. They added the auditorium, the gymnasium, right? So I think I mean, I still don't suggest it's an option that we should look at. I'm happy with where we went, but right, if you're taking that and you're looking at B1, project cost was 100 million, right? And that seems a lot to renovate the building, right? But if you take out the addition and, to Mark's point, all right, if we were going to do, a repair within the existing walls, not adding square footage, how much is it to make it ADA compliant and to do the energy goals and to, do some of those kinds of things as, 80 million, 65 million, right? Still not worth a probably a good idea, but I think having that back of the envelope kind of, just picking apart the existing estimate and kind of picking the pieces out of it that would be there regardless, might be worth an exercise to have.
So I'm looking at the 12 options that were submitted with the May submittal, right? And the base repair, which was actually A1, so I said it right, it's A1, was still $62 million. So I don't remember how. So you're saying that one went up 20,000 square feet?
For a B1.
Okay, so, but
yeah.
but A1 was a true base repair that you literally just.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're kind of intermingling the renovation options and the base repair. Base repair is strictly just bringing everything up to code. So we do have those values.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so
We did.
just to do that, you spend $60 million and you still have a 2-grade school and you have the old school. So you're going to spend $60 million. Why would you do that if you could spend a little bit more and have a brand new state-of-the-art school? So to me, that's the argument on the base repair versus what we proposed. Mark, you're shaking your head. Yes, you agree with that?
Yeah, well, I agree with that, but I think the explanation of it is we've stopped, and it's a communication issue. We haven't included all the elements in the explanation of it. Everyone thinks that it's a roof and a few other things.
Parking lot, yeah.
And it hits far more than that. And I've made the case that we can't punt on ADA anymore. I'll scream loud and because it needed to be done 30 years ago. But on the energy compliance, yeah, we got a significant problem.
Well, the ADA is going to get triggered, even if you didn't want to do it.
Right.
It's going to get triggered because of the value of the building and compared to what you have to do. You're already over that 40% easily with some things we talked about. So
maybe it's just doing an A1 summary, especially because, like remediation of hazardous materials, asbestos, ADA, electrical that's not up to code, right? The thing, energy that's not up to code, like the things that you would have to do yes or yes to that building. I mean, there's probably some stuff in there that's, I don't know, that probably you didn't have to do legally or would mass, something like that. That's probably a small portion of it. But if you could say of the 62 million, 55 million are these things that are yes, have to do's, then that kind of helps alleviate that conversation of like, well, what if we just did a base?
Yeah, and just pulling up the A1 option, just for Neary, just for the code repairs construction cost, that's 25 million right there. So
okay, yeah, but yeah, that would be like a perfect thing. Like if we broke down that 62 to say code repairs 25, right? Asbestos removal, boom, 5, whatever it is, and just be like, I don't think anybody can disagree that code repairs are going to be required. So we're going to be spending 25 million. This, like, we're just going to redo the roof conversation is not on the table.
Correct.
So I still go back to, so to me, the more viable alternative project would be to close Neary and expand Woodward and Fenn.
Yeah.
Remember, this all started with another subcommittee that did a lot of work to determine whether we could close the school. And the conclusion was, yes, we can close the school. We did 2 demographic studies to confirm we can close the school. That was all presented in public, presented to the school committee. So that was the preliminary work that was done before we even started the Neary building committees to determine it. So we've already announced to the town, we think based on projected demographics, we can close the school. So I still think that that is the one that is one we're going to deal with. Okay, so let's go back to things that, and Jim, please chime in here. Oh, by the way, and Brian will agree with this, the last town budget that we put together for August 9th didn't include this extra $2 million that we've now got to spend on the Breakneck Hill land. So there's another $2 million coming into it. So, you know, there's never any good news. It's always something bad, something coming forth that we didn't know about. There's that. The library is going to know probably this month, maybe next month, whether they've been accepted into the library design program. And I've been told that it's kind of like the school building program. Once you're in that piece of it, you should expect to be in all the way through as far as construction goes. So we'll know soon whether the library addition should be included in the town budget. Right now we have it in there. So that's one thing that's still a little bit of a wild card, that we were conservative and put it in there. Okay, so can we just go through things that might happen, Jim, between now and April that could conceivably reduce the cost significantly? So I started out with one that, so this is my list, the grossing factor. And Katie agrees with this. So Andrew Pfaff took a look at recent projects, and it looked like they all came in the end at something like 1.41, 1.42, 1.4. So if we end up with something like that, once they've got the schematic done, and it's my understanding you would know that once you've got the schematic done, what that grossing factor really is, once you really see how it's laid out, where the walls are, hallways are, bathrooms are, et cetera, that would help a lot. I mean, that's quite a bit of square footage that would come in of it, just because of, right now we're using an estimate of 1.5. Jim, do you agree or disagree with that?
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, just the overarching, just so folks know, I think the biggest or quickest way to reduce a budget is time and square footage. If we can take time off the project, if we can take square footage out of the building, that is the biggest bang for your buck. And then you start to go into some of the smaller pieces. So definitely with the grossing factor, really pushing on Arrow Street to make sure that they are designing an efficient building, so that we get that grossing factors as low as we can. Obviously, MSBA won't accept a building that's 1 point or over 1.5. So yeah, so I think that's definitely a great area to focus on, and that's part of our job, is to continue to push them, because contractually, Arrow Street's required to design to budget. They have to design to budget and meet the educational program when they put their drawings together. So they're kind of balancing those two.
Budget, actually, what budget?
What does design to budget mean?
Yeah.
Design to budget is that we are, whatever budget we have, they have to operate within. So at the completion of schematic design, towards the end, when we get the estimates, we will likely go through a value management, value engineering exercise. So and again, you can definitely take some money out of the budget, but that's typically, finishes, height of tile on walls, just walking through that stuff, and that's more small bites at the apple. But
Jim, the reason Adrian and I are snickering a little bit, they don't have a budget. They gave us what it's going to cost. So okay, I'll give them a budget, $50 million. Okay, come back and design it to $50 million and I'll be very happy. So there's my budget.
So
budget.
Yeah, I mean, it's really maximizing the efficiency of the building and maximizing the town's budget. I agree the budget will be what it is, but I think we have an understanding of where we need to be, and just making sure that when we get to the estimates are as efficient as possible.
I just think you're using the word budget wrong. We just don't have a budget. We've got a cost. We've got an estimate. And we gave them no cap. We gave them no limits. So what I'm hoping, the reason I think it's prudent to talk about this now is because they're just now starting to work on the schematic, and we want them to understand, architects love to design beautiful buildings, right? And they want, they want their names to be on them. They want them to be great landmarks. I remember that in one meeting, Mark Davis was looking at the one that had the wings on it and said, don't do the wings. That's going to get you a whole lot of excess space. So I just want to make clear to Katie and Larry soon that this group wants them to design as efficiently as possible. We want the education benefits of doing the school and with everything we know today, but we don't need the Taj Mahal at all. We need them to truly make this as efficient as possible. Reduce closet sizes, storage spaces, whatever you got to do. That it doesn't really matter how big it is as long as it works, and just really hammer in that message. So hopefully that the grossing factor will come down, and so we really will save some square footage as far as just that piece itself.
Agree.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we don't have a budget here. So if you want me to budget
and get creative, right? I mean, it's like storage.
Yep.
Okay. Maybe some storage is seasonal. Okay. Why don't we create a loading dock, and we can get, load a pod or a mobile storage unit and switch it out every season. So crazy, right? Just
yeah, it's a good one, because if anybody's had a home where you've brought after the fact, which I did, brought in, a California Closets type company, it's amazing what they can do as far as the space goes and what you can store. So I just want that. I agree with Andrew. Creativity as far as that kind of stuff, where it doesn't matter what it looks like. It just matters that it's really efficient and get as much in as you can. So yeah, if you've got any way to reduce that kind of non-educational space, let's do it. Because every square foot is more than $1,000, right? Okay. I assume, Jim, we're done with the MSB reimbursement rates affecting us at this vote, because we'll have a contract signed. So we will then have the rates fixed for this, so that we now do know what rates are going to apply to us as far as their max reimbursement rates. You agree with that?
At the completion of schematic design, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
they're not going
to vote again until next fall unless somebody.
Yeah, no. As far as the increases, no.
Yeah, so we're
highly unlikely. Yep.
Right, because I had that on my list too, because I kept asking this question and I don't know why it was so hard to answer. I kept saying, if they vote in the fall, which it looks like they were going to, and they did, do we not get to use that rate given we haven't signed this contract? And I just, to me, common sense was, of course. But anyway, so we now know the answer to that, but we know that we're done too as far as that goes. Okay, Jim, any indication that you've seen any reduction in building rates? Inflation came down to 2.5% today. So anything you've seen as far as contracts that have been bid lately that would give us any hope that some of these construction costs are going to not be as high as we think?
To be perfectly frank, I don't have enough information to say either way at this time.
All right.
Hopeful. I mean, obviously, hopefully it does head in the right direction, but yeah, definitely don't have any data to support any big changes coming up.
I know Mark has mentioned this before, that he hopes that the inflation starts getting pulled out of it. But the Fed doesn't want deflation. It wants a small rate of inflation. It doesn't like deflation at all either. So I don't know if we can hope for deflation, maybe at least in this area, given the inflation was so marked compared to other things. So maybe. I know when we did the public safety building, we got the town meeting approval for an amount of money that was based on architect's estimates. And then we went out to bid, and the bid came in much lower than what, or the bids came in much lower than what our projection was. Now, we ate up some of that difference with our contingency, but we still never came back to the full amount that was authorized. So the actual bid turned out to be much better than what we had estimated. So we can only hope that there's nothing we can do about it. I guess, it either is or is not going to be that case this time.
Jim, does having an area right there by the school as a big lay down area help? Does that make it more efficient?
It certainly helps with logistics. Yeah, to have a big site, you're not building on a postage stamp like down in Boston. your logistic, your GCs, your GRs will definitely go up just for logistics and coordination. So it helps.
Yeah, I mean, because I've stated it, I don't know whether it has been in the system that we should shut down the recreation facilities other than the tennis courts during this entire project. And it would give you a relatively big area to the right of that school that's flat and right close by to stockpile the steel, stockpile whatever we need to do. So it gives you a big, wide open window to do some forward purchasing if suddenly supplies lighten up a little bit. The other thing is it takes out of all your subcontractors needing to store materials back at their shops. And then we're paying time and materials to get that stuff to the site. It seems to me if we had a wide open construction site, we're going to be far more efficient.
Yeah, definitely more efficient. I don't think we could, until we have a schematic design, be able to say what that value is. So.
Yeah, but we could start talking to, the rec department and the schools now to see if it's possible to let go of those fields. They're gonna, go ahead.
The site already includes the one field next to the parking lot. That's part of the site scope.
And that it's taking it, right? It's gone.
Well, it's just in the scope of, it's in the big circle.
So it wouldn't be used, is what you're saying, during construction.
Well, it's being anticipated that it's going to be part of, the regrassing and doing all the work in that area as part of the estimate. So I would assume that staging area is could be used as staging area. It's going to be part of that kind of disturbed area that they're planning on.
I suspect that soccer field at the base will probably be where the detention basin has to go. Needs to go on the lowest spot at the site, so gravity feeds the stuff to it. That was just always my impression. That's the logical spot for it.
Which somebody did mention to me, and I couldn't find out if it was true or not, that was built with CPA funds. Which you'd have to double check that we can use that.
Well, okay, do they call that one the Lundblad Field, or do they call what's above the landfill the Lundblad Field? Which one's
That's
Lundblad?
called the landfill.
Yeah.
So CPA definitely did Lundblad.
Yeah. But I don't know if it paid to do the lower field there. Somebody mentioned that to me.
Okay, but this is great. This is a great idea, Mark. So, Jim, we definitely should pursue this by talking to rec department and the school, current Neary principal, to see, what they would be doing once they move their kids out as far as fields go. I don't know how much those fields are used for anything other than school stuff. I have no idea.
Yep.
There's a pile of sand down there right now. Down next to that soccer field. I don't know whether the town is doing something.
That's the town that's doing that. The rec department maintains that field.
Yeah.
I know it is used for PE classes occasionally, but I would say the majority of the use of that field is after school and recreation.
Yeah.
And Becky, you're talking about the one that's next to the parking lot, not the one
Yes.
that's above the landfill.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so that's rec department that uses that one, schedules that one, maintains that one.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so it sounds like the rec department needs to be brought in on this so they can help figure this out.
The other question, Jim, when do we lock in the extra incentive points? Is that something that we kind of have? I know it kind of changes because you have to hit those energy efficiency hurdles at the end with the audit, but what I'm trying to get at is say the overlay zoning for 40R, 40S, or those kinds of things. When does that get locked in? If we did it over during the project being built, could we still qualify for them?
So add project scope and budget at the completion of schematic design.
Okay.
When we sign the project scope and budget with the MSBA, your rate is locked in, and your basis for your estimated facilities grant is locked in. So all those points, whatever points we're putting in for those, that's what you get.
And that is after town meeting?
So that is before town meeting. We will go in front of the MSBA and get formal board approval. And then it goes, once we have that locked in, then that goes to the town for a vote.
What I'm trying to get at, Kathy, there's 1 or 1.5% there.
Yep.
That is within the town's control to get. It would require us to do some grunt work to put in some zoning. But it might be worth looking at.
Well, we use 5 points with our projection, right?
Correct.
Jim, do you have the details of the 5? I don't have.
I think it was just maintenance and energy efficiency.
Okay, and we knew that we did, we could do one more with energy efficiency, right? We could get 6 between the two of those. We knew we were going to do maintenance, so we said use a full 2 there, right? We
Correct.
used 3 instead of, so there's another point I think to get with the energy efficiency, maybe?
Correct. Yeah, it's 0 to 4, and we're using 3 right now.
Okay, now you're saying that we will know next spring how many points we're going to get, right? That's the time that we're going to know. Once the schematic's done, we've gone from the MSBA, we're going to know at that point what our points are going to be, right? Our incentive points.
Correct. How many projected? For both those, you have to satisfy requirements. For the green schools, you have to satisfy requirements through construction all the way to closeout. And maintenance the same way. There's certain documentation that you have to submit. But if you fulfill all those requirements, then yes, you're getting those points.
But where is the discussion being had that determines how far we're going to go to try to get the full 4 points? In other words, it's going to cost something to do it. It's not going to be free. So where is that cost benefit analysis being done to decide? Because 1 point's another $1 million, right?
Yep.
So who is that? The sustainability committee that's going to do that? Who is going to actually do that work so that the architects can be advised as to what we want here?
Yeah, so Arrow Street will walk through the process of the design, understanding how we can get to the 4 points to get that additional point.
When are they going to do that?
I'm not sure. We
It's
don't
part
have
of
their work.
schematic. It's going to be part of that value analysis.
It's through schematic design. We haven't started schematic design yet. They're working on some things, but we still have to get through the PSR. So I don't have their work plan in front of you. I couldn't tell you exactly when. We will decide it through that process in concert with the sustainability subcommittee.
Okay, so the PSR is done. We're just going to tweak it on Friday, right?
Correct.
Still has to be approved and accepted, right? And then move to the next.
We have to go in front of the facilities assessment and then get it formally approved to proceed into schematic design in October.
What caused it to have to be tweaked?
We'll review it on Friday.
Because you don't know?
Well, we'll wait for the Neary committee, Kathy.
All right.
So Jim, back to those other zoning ones. Do you have the information on what the requirement is for those? If we wanted to try to, for $1.5 million, maybe it's worth trying to put together a zoning bylaw that we could approve at, a town meeting prior to signing the MSBA.
Yeah, I'm sure we can pull some information as to what those requirements are for both of those incentive points.
And Andrew, you know how hard it is to get a zoning bylaw approved in this town. And you know that it's the planning board's purview to bring that forth. Therefore, if we're going to try to do that, we need to start on that ASAP. We've also on the special town meeting warrant, Mark, on the 30th, there is an article to give the select board more flexibility as far as when to set the annual town meeting date. So we are asking town meeting to approve changes in article to say that we can set it anytime through the last Saturday in April. It used to be the middle of April, and then there was a group that wanted to move it to March because of their kids' sports schedules. But it kills us. It's really hard to get the budget done. So if we've got the flexibility, then if we were going to try to do this, we'd have to do it before the MSBA process completed. So we'd have to do the annual town meeting in March, Andrew,
or hold a special.
just for that.
Yeah, I don't, if it's, I mean, if, it's my understanding, like a 40R, we could put it's basically the same requirement as MBTA. Like, okay, maybe we do a small overlay 40R district on top of Madison Place's parcel, that district there. Okay, then we get a whole point for doing that.
Okay, so it doesn't matter where the 40R is, just so you do it somewhere in the town?
I think that's what my understanding when I looked at it before.
What is a 40R? What's the basis of it?
It's dense multifamily housing.
I know exactly where you should put it. On
But
the
anyway.
on the MBTA station land.
But anyway, so yeah, I mean, we can look at that later, but if it's something that is relatively not painful to do, and it's more just paperwork to add it to, you know, it's not going to add a zoning, you know, risk or concern. It's just basically, we don't have a 40R in town, and this would give us a 40R, check but the box, and we get an extra $1 million in reimbursement. And you get, actually, if you do a 40R, you actually get money from the state for doing it. Then maybe it's worth looking into.
Well, let's at least look into it so we know that we looked into it, right? And don't
Yeah.
regret that we didn't look into it when it's too late. But if we're gonna look into it, we gotta do it pretty quick. And I can't imagine having a special town meeting for that one thing. Nobody would come.
Yeah, Kathy, give me a call.
Okay, I
That
will.
goes to a separate idea that I've been mulling on.
I mean, that's what I'm looking for is, you know, $1 million at a time. If we can just keep
Yeah.
finding $1 million here, $1 million there, $1 million there.
I mean, a special town meeting costs $10,000-$20,000 to run, and if we get 100 people, we do it, and it saves us $1 million. Fine.
Yeah, and if you don't, you wasted your time. You have to make sure you got 100 people coming for that. All right, so I think it's worth looking at, Andrew. All right, so just to be clear, Jim, because this is still not clear to me, you're saying Sustainability Committee, Subcommittee, is going to take this up as far as what the requirements are to get all 4 energy efficient points and look at whether it is the pros outweigh the cons. That's part of what they're going to do.
Well, it's going to be derived from Arrow Street's design. They understand what aspects, what pieces of the building need to be designed into the building to get those full 4 points. Those sustainability elements of the building will be reviewed with the Sustainability Subcommittee as to, and then, you know, there will be some, you know, payback, period of time for payback for different items that will be reviewed with that group. So, yes.
Okay. And Kathy, the other thing we haven't really looked into is, you know, some of the operational kind of cost savings in terms of, you know, okay, if we add solar panels, what would we save on our electricity bill? Or if we're closing the school, what would we be saving? Is, you know, is there any, you know, overhead by having 2 that now having 1 saves us, etc.
Yeah, but that, of course, is not going to change the amount of the bond. So yeah, you can put that in there and tell people that, you know, yeah, the bond's $84 million, but we also think we're going to save, make up a number, $500,000 of operating cost in this much more efficient school. So yeah, we could do the math, but still, you know, the bond is still the bond, right?
Yeah.
Right, but that's a good point. Okay, so other things I had as far as things that may impact, again, I'm talking overall budget to the town now, right? Because I still think that's what's more important to people, not necessarily exactly what the school cost. Okay, site cost. Jim, has the soil testing been completed and analyzed, and do we have the results?
Yes, I believe so. I got to, let me check with Arrow Street on that. I don't have a quick answer for you.
So can you let us know? Because I'd like to understand whether whatever they've come up with is going to impact the estimated site cost. So that's why I'm bringing the financial piece of this into it. Because site costs still may have some excess money in them, I hope, right?
You have a big unknown until we get in there, which is exactly what's under the building. You're not going to know that.
So Mark, these soil tests won't tell us very much, is what you're saying?
Yeah, until we can get in and get under that building and really determine what's there, where we're putting our foundations, we're gonna come close by doing the borings right up close to the foundation. But that still doesn't take 100% of it off the table.
Yeah, but I mean, my understanding, Jim, is that where they did the borings is kind of where the new building will sit also. Like it's the soil that would be under the new foundation. So it's better than, I mean, there's still, to your point, Mark, a big chunk of it that was part of the old building that we won't know what there is, but.
Yeah.
Right.
And this isn't a full soil study. And when we get through past schematic design, and we start to look at this, you have the funds to do a full, you're basically putting a toothpick in the ground, and making assumptions. So it gives you some data, but, there is always that risk, and that's what the estimators plan for.
So I get that by the time this goes out to bid and you've got full construction documents, right? That you know a whole lot more at that point, right? But that's already too late. At that point, I'm trying to get to the town meeting vote and see what we can reduce between now and the town meeting vote that's realistic. And it sounds like this may not be one of them. The site costs that we have right now may have to stick as far as the estimate goes.
I can't say that with definitively today. We don't have a lot of information. We haven't started schematic design yet. We let us get through the process, and then we can have more information for the group. A lot of this, I hope so, but I can't say that definitively today on beginning of September.
So Mark, would you anticipate that a schematic design process would give us any more information on the actual site cost?
It'll come closer, but there's still, we're not going to eliminate the contingency at that point.
All right, so this is one that may stick. So Jim, how many more estimates are we going to get from the estimators between now and the end of schematic design?
There's one when the schematic design drawings are complete, drawings and specifications. Arrow Street will do, or PM&C will do a estimate. Skanska will do an estimate with our estimators. We'll reconcile both estimates, and that'll be the last round of estimating before the project scope and budget.
So Skanska will do a full-blown estimate also independently?
Correct. Yep, 2 independent estimates.
But you haven't done that yet. So far, right? So this will be the first time Skanska will be estimating, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and at that point, you expect that 15% contingency to be swapped with real numbers, right? With real things, real cost.
Yeah, we'll be getting closer. At schematic design, you do still carry some design and pricing contingency, but hopefully we'll be able to reduce that somewhat, depending on the knowns and unknowns. But that's a decision that we make at the completion of schematic design, where that lands with the estimators.
And truly, the estimates are done totally independently. You guys aren't going to talk to each other at all. It's truly going to be 2 independent estimates.
So there's 2 independent estimates. We come together with each estimate and reconcile. Yep. So if there's any big discrepancy, yep.
Okay, so you do your own thing, and then you do sit down before it's presented to talk about where your differences are and decide where the better number is?
Correct. Yep.
On the end, you end up presenting one to us that is a combination of the efforts of both groups.
Correct.
Right? Okay.
Yep.
Alrighty. Soft cost. I don't want to stay, but next meeting, let's start looking at some of the soft costs that Skanska estimated. I mean, now I am talking about pennies and not millions of dollars, but there's some things on there that Andrew Pfaff and I know about that won't apply to us. For example, our legal cost. We got a fixed fee with our town council, and this is part of it, which I check with them to make sure. So I think we can start maybe fine tuning that number a little bit more.
Yeah, happy to go through those. That's
okay.
Easy. Yeah,
you better. It's right up your bailiwick, right? That's you.
Yes.
All right, so we'll do that on the next meeting. So let's really just look at those and see if we can get those down a little bit. That hopefully will take some cost out of it too. All right, so that's all I've got. Andrew, Mark, anything else we can put on this list of things that we might, besides just truly trying to reduce encouraging the architects continue to look for square footage reductions, even besides the grossing factor?
Contract type,
What's that?
the contract type.
Ooh. Yeah, so we should talk about that again too. So Jim, you're still sure we're going to do the one where the contractor takes the risk?
I think it's, obviously it's ultimately up to the committee, but I do think on a project of this scale, it makes sense. And we have a whole presentation on pros and cons. So we'll have that discussion. I definitely think of a project of this magnitude, it does make good sense. And with some of the unknowns that we have, it can mitigate some of those as well.
And MSBA will let us make that decision. That's not that they can make a recommendation, but they will let us decide, make that decision, or will they?
Nope.
send it
Yeah,
to the end?
that's 100% on the district.
Okay. All right. Andrew, anything else you can think of that might reduce costs between now and the end of schematic?
I mean, we could have conversations about, fundraising, donations, whatever, that kind of thing. But yeah, again, that we're looking for millions, and that's not gonna.
Yeah, and just remember the third party funding with the MSBA. If you receive a $2 million donation, say from somebody, they decrease their grant by $2 million. So
Really?
yeah.
So not by-
Outside,
not by-
outs
They don't take their 30%. They take 100% dollar for dollar?
yes.
Ew, well,
But is that state grants or that's third party?
That's third party.
Okay.
So yeah, they definitely changed some of the energy efficiency incentives. Those aren't considered third party anymore. But yeah, we can run through all that.
so the sustainability subcommittee is going to look really hard at all of the incentives that were included in the Inflation Protection Act. They're going to understand those really well, I hope.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we don't get pinged for those. Well, that takes the impetus for wanting to do any outside fundraising.
One other thing which we may want to know a better number on, and it probably needs to be handled with I'm going to call it a quiet subcommittee, is the whole security side of it. I know we have a budget number. I can't think of it off the top of my head. But I think there needs to be a separate effort to be meeting with the police chief to come up with what we're talking about for security and whether or not that budget item is sufficient to what we want. So just because we're on the cutting edge of this stuff. Just a thought.
So what I can say is that we will have a security, safety and security subcommittee.
Okay.
And also as part of our schematic design submittal to the MSBA, they require you to spell all that out, what your safety and security plans are, what your budgets are. But yeah, certainly from now and through schematic design, many meetings with police and fire.
Okay. The other thing I reached out to Jason on, and it was kind of a double-edged idea, is when we did the high school 30 years ago, 20 years ago, we had a group of basically high school students that were part of the effort to get it passed at town meeting. They eloquently spoke. They almost got arrested the day of town meeting because they were holding signs up, and Data General's security guard wanted them arrested because they were trespassing. But there was a cadre of young people that really played a part in it. When we did the elementary schools, we also had a group of committed parents and everything else. But we're kind of in the middle. This school's not a middle school, and it's not the pre-K. It's kind of in the middle. And we don't have the high school kids really involved in it. And I suggested to the communications group, and this is penny wise stuff. If there's a group at the high school that wants to be involved in a recycling effort, there's value to the steel we take out of the demolition project. And if there's a group that really wants to take on this to really make it a true green building, that we're going to take this metal, go out and get it back out into the market, recycling. Are there other components of the building we could do that? What it does is it gets other people involved in this whole school process, and it makes it easier to see them at town meeting that this is a community effort. I guess I'm saying, historically, when you wanted to raise a barn, you pulled the neighborhood in, and the neighborhood raised the barn with you. This is the opposite. We're going to tear a school down and put something new. We can't help the new building come up, but we can certainly help the old building come down, even if it's elementary school kids involved
Hey,
in
Mark.
recycling old desks. Who
Mark,
knows?
We're getting a little bit far afield as far as.
Well, no, because some
but-
of that needs to be, if we're going to take pieces of that out, we may not be permitted to. But it takes some things off the budget and puts it elsewhere to deal with. And it helps us at the same time because we're suddenly making it a community effort. It may be pennies, but it may help us in the long run.
Oh, I'm happy to try to save pennies too. So give me an example of something that we could turn into money.
My assumption is there's value to that steel.
So this is something maybe you should also broach with the sustainability subcommittee. Because again, that's going to have to be talked about sooner than later, certainly for construction starts.
And the same issue we've got money in the equipment. If we're going to abandon a lot of the equipment in the schools, and again, it may not save us a lot of money, but it gets people excited about it at town meeting that they're involved in recycling the desks, recycling a lot of this old equipment, getting them over to third world nations where they can use the desks. That's what I'm trying to kill two birds, take some of the burden off, basically because we have a tight construction schedule. If Jim is sitting here saying it's a 2-year project, we don't have any months at the far end. If you start in July of that summer, you got 2 years. We don't want the school unfinished in August because we're getting ready to put the kids in there. There's no room for this thing to slide. And I suspect it's going to take the school department a month or two to get the equipment out of that school. So if we've got a community effort, it's going to help us in the long run not to miss our date at the end. Because if we miss it, we're into a partial school year where we can't move the kids in. And that in itself is a cost to the town. So I'm kind of tying a lot together. But there may be ways that the community will want to step in and handle stuff. And that's my lay down area. We can really spread things out and really get some other groups involved. Just some thinking.
All right, I still think that discussion belongs maybe either with the whole committee or with sustainability, because that's a lot. But I will say this, remember, it's not a 2-year construction project on the 4-year school. It's 30 months. It's 2.5 years. I assume that's going to get fine tuned at some point. But right now, 24 months was the 2-year school. 30 months was the 4-year school, so or 4th grade school. So that's 2.5 years. So if we could somehow, as Jim says, another way to save a lot of money is to reduce the time. If we could somehow figure out a way to build a school correctly in 2 years, that would probably save a ton of money. So there's the money piece of that one for sure. Okay. All right, can anybody think of anything else that this subcommittee can truly try to focus on between now and the end of schematic to try to peel some money? Because I think the story that we tell town meetings, we started at, let's see, $150 million, folks, and we're now down to whatever the new number is, which is going to be quite significantly less. We're already down quite a bit from that. And if we can just show that, at the time that we voted on the project, we were here, and then now we're even here lower, I think it goes a long way to convincing the town meeting folks that we have done everything we can to mitigate the damage to real estate tax bills.
Now, I'll say this one without much of a solution. But the modulars is obviously a significant cost. If
Yep.
there's any way to work around those, that's $2 million that we're carrying within the budget now. Even if we limited them or decreased their square footage, that's definitely and that's 100% non-reimbursable. So
Yep,
swing
and
space.
that's a good one, Jim. That's a good one. So of course, they just estimated that they needed that, so they'll be fine tuning that. So hopefully that
Mhm.
comes. That's a really good one to look at.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so we'll keep doing. So we'll let's set the next meeting date will be the middle of October. And by then we will have met. Neary Building Committee will at least have met once. And so at that point, I think we really can start trying to make sure that we believe we have given the architects the message we want them to have as far as cost scope, which is cut it, please. Okay. Becky, Brian, anything you guys want to say? All right, okay. Anybody else? Is anybody in the audience, Andrew?
Mr. Stavers.
Of course. Hello, Sam. All right, so that's all I've got. Unless anybody has anything else.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, Mark.
All good.
Okay, well, you need to second the motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Andrew.
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
Took us aye. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.